okay, we're just having a good time.
Yeah,
This is not like this isn't like we're going for gold medals or anything. And frankly, it was just kind of fun to be out there and do that race again because it was like super fun. And again, my mind was, I was obviously present and enjoying myself, but my mind was already, okay, we got Casco. I have this 50K. So let's just work on the things we need to work on here. And I think, on all that stuff we accomplished, I thought our transitions were way better than they were at Whistler. I think
very snappy on the transitions. And it wasn't like, there was a beach exit or two there, but there was some pretty rooted out stuff that you kind of had to be a little bit careful. And I thought we did execute transitions very well. Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 239 of the show. In this show, we share our race recap for the 2024 edition of TBF Racing's Folsom Swimrun. We raced the short and the long course, aka the Chipper Special, I think is what we're calling it.
Wow.
And had a ton of fun participating in, surprisingly, California's only swim run, but at least it's a swim run that is worthy because this was a really fun event. This is the third year that they did it.
Yep.
You've done all three. I've done only two of them, and this was our 19th swim run as a team.
As the Low Tide Boyz.
Yeah, or 20 if you count
19 official.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, races.
Races. Last you heard from us, we had just finished Attila Whistler up in beautiful Whistler, Canada. That was our one of our A races for the season, and I think we made a point of it this year to really try to do some more local races. We went up to Bellingham and did the Bellingham Swimrun, had a great time at that little local race there. And Folsom Swimrun is only about a 90-minute drive from where we live in Novato over to Folsom. So Chris was over at my house bright and early on Saturday morning at 4:55 for us to head over there. But yeah, we have Casco Bay in a couple weeks. So this was really served as a very nice weekend, right? To exercise and fitness.
Yeah, we're sort of training through this race, and it was a chance to race in race conditions and really just kind of put it through the paces in terms of just working on transitions and making sure communication's dialed in. I mean, Casco Bay is certainly going to be a much more challenging race in terms of currents and all that stuff, but this race was great. It's really well organized, really well marked. It's great community vibe, as you can expect. The same community vibe we find at every single swim run. And I think training wise, I was feeling pretty good going in. I kind of have looming over my shoulder this big 50K that's going to happen in sort of the middle of September. So yeah, but you've
been putting the run miles and the hill volume in there, and it took a little bit of a mini break after Whistler, but then kind of right back to it here. But the short course, actually the heat in Folsom had been excruciating, 100 plus degrees for almost the whole week leading up to it, which is kind of standard for summer in Sacramento area. But for some reason, there was a little bit of overcast, and it was only going to get up to only around 85 degrees there. So it still meant it was VIG weather for us.
Yeah, it was certainly,
we didn't leave that up to chance.
It was certainly VIG weather. We got there nice and early. I will say, sort of year over year, again, I wasn't there last year, but there were so many more people there this year.
Yeah.
And so many more people sort of, I would say, appropriately like kitted out. And people came up to us as like, hey, check out the shoes, and so we were getting a lot of love out there, which was always fun. Now, the race, the reason we could do both distances is just the way they set up, TBF and Bill and their whole team sets up the race. They do a short course, which is about 3.5 miles total distance that starts at 7 in the morning. And then they have the long course that starts at 8. So if you could, and the long course is sort of like 8.5 miles. So if you could get through the short course in an hour, which, Chipper proved that this was possible last year.
It does put a little bit more pressure on, you gotta hustle along on some things to make that happen.
Yeah.
But it was a fun thing to do last year, do the double, made it a little bit more of like kind of almost a half marathon distance worth of swim running, which is a solid day out there.
And there were 3 teams.
I was going to say we weren't the only teams doing the double. So, we were lucky to meet up with a couple folks before in the parking lot as we were getting ready that we knew were doing the double as well. Some folks even flew up from LA area. They're doing world champs. A couple other teams that were doing the Attila World Championship did the double. So we weren't the only ones out there, but
Yeah.
I guess
Shout out Team Light the Beam.
Light the beam, baby. Sacramento represent with their purple tether and everything. So, yeah, I guess what we didn't really discuss too much in terms of strategy or what we wanted to do. I think we were just, we knew we were going to go out there. The direction that I had received from Coach Liz was don't be afraid to go hard. Like, okay, message received.
Well, it's funny you say that because I wish you would have told me that she had given you that direction a little bit.
Sorry.
So, that would have been helpful. Yeah. I think like I had from my side, I didn't have any expectations. I was just like, well, the drive up, I was like, hey, can you run over sort of like the leg breakdowns real quick just to like get a little refresher there? And like, I'm feeling pretty fit on the run. So I think sort of implicitly decided Chipper was going to lead the first swim on the short course. And
it starts with the swim.
So it's a true swim run.
Yeah.
Because it starts with a swim. And then I was just kind of letting Chipper kind of set the pace on the run so that I wasn't sort of blasting him because I felt like a lot of pace in hand. I would actually say Chipper probably had like 20 to 30 seconds where
sandbagging.
So I mean, not that we were moving really well, so I'm not complaining about anything, but it was just like, okay, well, because I felt like I had some in the tank, I was like, well, let me just let you sort of set the pace. So that way we're, I'm not bearing you or it was also
let me bury myself.
Exactly. like you decide, you follow Coach Liz's orders.
Okay. Yeah. And so it started off with the swim and the water temp. And I had known this from the year before. The waters are actually not, if it's going to be 90, 100 degrees in the air, the water is actually pretty chilly. I don't know what you would say. I would probably put it somewhere in the low 60s, if not in the upper 50s.
Yeah, I would say low 60s. I'll give it a 62.
Okay, a 62 there. So, nothing. We did the Attila Whistler in the VIG. So I was telling Chris earlier, I'm like, I feel like that gave me a lot of confidence in my ability to withstand cold water in that suit. So, yeah. And I think one thing that, so this had 4 or 5 swims and 3 runs. So a little bit lopsided on the swim piece for the short course, but the first swim is supposed to be about 0.8 of a mile. So that's about a K or so. It's definitely a long, it's like a pretty solid start to the video.
It took us like 15 minutes of swimming to get it done kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think we probably shot out a little bit quick for the short course. We kind of got out, definitely hard swimming for that first bit there. And then, very approachable course, easy, like very familiar. I knew all the legs sort of in my head, which was a nice thing there.
Yeah. And there really wasn't anything that was super long, especially on the short course. I think the longest run was like a mile.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very approachable. Tons of beginners doing that one. Tons of people like just wearing their Speedos or triathlon kits and stuff. And yeah, it was we definitely had the benefit of experience on that one. I think we took off and then, transitioning pretty quickly. I think some folks were surprised by how quickly we were transitioning. And managed to finish that first one, slightly uneventfully, first overall with about, I think we had like 14 minutes to spare before the long course. So that was actually kind of fun. Got to like, oh yeah, let me just throw out my trash. Let me,
kind
go
of like
pee in the river.
Bring it down a little bit. But yeah, I think the short course was a good time. Definitely put, a tempo effort out there on pretty much everything. And yeah, it was good. Refamiliarize yourself with the course, little ups and downs, some little bit of technical and rocks and everything, but overall pretty approachable course there. Had a good time. Need to make sure that your fuel, like for me, I was like, okay, you got to fuel because you're not just fueling for this race, you're fueling for when you're starting again in 15 minutes or so. So,
Right. And, I think we should have probably mentioned that we followed our nutrition protocol that we talked about on last week's show.
yeah,
So we were, 15 minutes before. And actually, Kara, who flew up, one of the
yeah,
folks who flew up from LA, she was like, "Oh, you're taking your jump. Must be 15 minutes until the race." I
yeah.
was like, it.
She captured a photo. I was finishing off my
mid-jump.
caffeine gel.
In the act.
And
But yeah, so I think we were thinking about it like, hey, this is one event with like a little bit of potentially a little bit of pause,
yeah,
45 minutes, an hour in. And that's basically what ended up happening. Like, I didn't really feel like I got cold or wasn't still warmed up. In fact, I thought when we started the long course, that swim didn't feel as bad, but we also had like more people around us.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the short course pretty uneventful for the most part, and yeah, 48 minutes or 43 minutes or something along those lines there. So we did have a little bit of a break, finished off that gel, kind of chilled for a little bit, and then got ready for the long course, which was a little bit more popular, I guess. There was more folks there. Someone that had trained with us, Hunter, drove down from Santa Rosa. He was racing at solo. He did world champs.
And first overalls. Congrats.
Okay,
Hunter.
yep, congrats on that. We had the other double, long course or short course, long course combos doing that race as well, including the team Light the Beam, who literally crossed the finish line and basically turned right around to get back into the water to start the race, which is pretty comical. Great timing.
Yeah.
Overall on that.
Yeah, it was like we saw him come in. It's like, oh, just in time. Okay, we're going in 10.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was really cool that we won the short course there. The long course definitely felt like, there's going to be a little bit more competition. We know Hunter is a pretty solid athlete himself. I mean, we were ready for the swim. We had our micro tether, and upon race start, the swim got we were in the middle of two people. Both sides shot out rather quickly, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is how it's gonna be. Okay, I've got to better really get going here." So definitely pushing pretty hard on that first swim, and Hunter was right along on my right hand side the whole time. Definitely trying to push a good pace on the swim there, and he's a swimmer by nature, so I hold no delusions of being an adult onset swimmer on keeping up with someone who's been swimming. And all I could see is when I was breathing, his stroke was just looking so fluid and gliding, and everything looked so easy. I was like, this looks so zone 2. And then I would like check in with myself, and I'm like, I'm on the rivets. I'm on the line here. Like, either he is like really masking this well, or this was not going to end well for us. I think we got out of the water like just at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah, so we pretty much hung out with Hunter for that first swim, that first run. So you're essentially doing the short course in repeat, and then at one point you turn right instead of turning left. So you do that almost mile swim again, and that swim felt longer than advertised. And then you do about a half a mile run, then you do a 400-yard swim back to sort of the start, and then you have this like mile-ish run. So we were with Hunter that whole time, and on that run we actually like created a little bit of space in front of him, but we stopped at aid station. I don't know if he did, and then we kind of got in the water at around the same time, and then that swim was another sort of 400, 500. And then you get into basically a series of longer runs. So it's a 2.5 mile run, which is the opportunity to open it up. The trails are super runnable. And that's where I intentionally was like, you know what? I'm feeling spry, but that does not serve the team right now. So I kind of just let Chipper just keep leading and setting pace. And I think at one point, like you were slowing up on the downhill, and I was like, just keep the tempo, dude, or like something like that. But other than that, like I didn't really, Hunter started pulling away, and it was just like, well,
Yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, we definitely weren't. We weren't racing him. We were racing with him, and it was fun to, jockey back and forth like that, gets the juices flowing, I guess. But yeah, I think
we're just hanging out with people.
Yeah,
usually
just hanging
we're
out
like
instead of being
in
in no man's land for hours. But yeah, I guess kind of similar to what had happened at Bellingham is like put in the hard effort on the swim and then come out right into another hard effort. So like just really extending the tempo, which, for an hour and a half race, like I should be able to do that, and I can, and then did. But it also, on that run, we were keeping in contact there for a bit, and then I just kind of like, started chipping away and putting a couple seconds in, and then I just, don't have that kind of pace in me, I guess. I don't know what, I mean, maybe we should try letting you go ahead of me and just seeing if I can unlock a new level instead of letting me be throttling myself.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's certainly stuff that we can discuss. I think this year too, because we haven't done a lot of our key sessions together. Like, I don't have a super solid sense of kind of where you're at pace wise. So I think that's one of the reasons. But also, it was just like, hey, we're just having a good time. Like, this is not like this isn't like we're going for gold medals or anything. And frankly, it was just kind of fun to be out there and do that race again, because it was like super fun. And again, my mind was, I was obviously present and enjoying myself, but my mind was already, okay, we got Casco. I have this 50K. So let's just work on the things we need to work on here. And I think, on all that stuff we accomplished, I thought our transitions were way better than they were at Whistler. I think
very snappy on the transitions. And it wasn't like, I mean, there was a beach exit or two there, but there was some pretty rooted out stuff that you kind of had to be a little bit careful. And I thought we did execute transitions very well. The only sort of snafu was getting into that swim after the 2.5 mile run. We kind of were coming up on the, we were maybe 50 meters away from the swim entrance, and we saw that Hunter was already in the water, like just kind of getting into the water. And I had been running, I take my goggles down to my neck if I take my cap off, and I had everything back, dressed. And I thought our timing was really good around transitions, and like we were ready when the transition was there. There was no like,
we were like
around at the water. We were being very on top of that, which I thought was good. And like that definitely is needed for Casco as well, to have have a good flow there
for sure.
And it was kind of a little bit of a diagonal swim, and I put my goggles on and they were totally fogged up from kind of being around my neck. And the decision that I decided to go with, I was squinting through my goggles, and I'm like, I can kind of see the buoy. I'm just going to go, because I didn't want,
spoiler alert, he couldn't see the buoy at all. I was actually about to stop you when you basically pulled up, and I was literally about to give you like a big old tap on the foot when you pulled up, and I was like, where you going, dude? And you're like, oh, my goggles fogged up. And then I was like, oh, they were like, oh, here we go.
So they were getting really foggy, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go too far down this path that I don't know what it is. But at the same time, I didn't want to stop because, the person in front of us was swimming right away. But I finally was like, I can't see shit. I got to stop. So I popped up, pulled my goggles, and I looked, and I was like way off the mark. That was probably one of the worst foggy goggles.
Well, honestly, I wasn't sure what you were doing.
Were you backseat side?
Well, I was sighting, but the sun was to the right, so I was breathing to the left, and then I took like a breath to the right just to make sure, just to really key in on it once we were a couple strokes out, and then that's when I was about to kind of catch up and tap you.
What's going on?
When you pulled up. So we course corrected again. Doesn't matter. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's all fine. We crossed, and then we were doing essentially the second to last run, which is about 2 miles.
Yeah, like 1.8 miles or something like that.
And that's, once you're there, we're sort of heading home.
You're heading back towards the remainder of the course and the finish line, essentially. But yeah, I mean, kept a good up tempo on that, at least for me, along there. And those two runs are kind of more exposed, and it was, the whatever overcastness had burnt off, and the heat was out.
True, it was coming.
It was coming. I probably could have had one more 30 gel. I probably should have done one in between the races, in retrospect. But we got to that next swim, and you were like, do you want a break? And I'm like, yeah, that would be great.
Well, actually, so I think the way I mentioned it was like, hey, why don't I take this one so you can take a breather? And you were like, sure. You were kind of like it was a little downbeat. I was like, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, I guess I felt bad that I fucked the sighting thing up with my foggy goggles.
Oh, that wasn't the reason why I was like benching you because of
I know.
that.
I didn't take it. I'm my own harshest critic, sort of thing. And like, I guess that's where I got frustrated. And then I could also tell that you weren't, that my exertion level was definitely higher than what yours was. So I guess, I was like frustrated with that with myself, I suppose. But yeah, the break was nice. And that, yeah, I mean, it's also, I haven't been in the back for a while, so it was a little bit.
That's my
like
master plan, dude.
The tether was
I'm
like
trying to stay in the back.
tether was going all. I was like, how does Chris do this? How does Chris do this? All I just need to worry about is like swim hard to the big Dorito chip in the water. Chris is like, I'm like, oh my god, this tether thing. But then actually, those shoes,
no problem.
Your shoes were very, very easy to sight off of. So that was helpful. And yeah, it was definitely like, okay, instead of like, zone 3+, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, you definitely can
it
get
makes
a
a difference. Yeah, so that swim, I was probably going at like 85%, and probably for you, it probably felt like 70, 75, which is true. Like when you're really going
like
for
a
it,
Z2
like I'm definitely, working to keep up, but just it's that economy is certainly helpful when you need it. Yeah, so we finished that swim.
Good job, Chris.
I did it. I let us swim.
I knew you could do it.
We got out, and immediately I was like, after you.
Yeah, you're like, here, why don't you just
like,
lead this next run?
Because I think it was half a mile or
like
maybe
an eighth of a mile
to get to the last swim, which essentially you just swim across the river one more time, and the finish line is right there, and that's like a 500 swim. So we finished that off. At that point, we had consolidated. We knew Hunter was in front of us, and we didn't really see anyone behind us.
Yeah.
So we knew we consolidated sort of second overall and first team. So yeah, we just kind of like finished it off, and yeah, it was super fun. Finish line vibes were there. We saw Hunter right at the finish line. We started taking photos, and then just started cheering people in. We went to change real quick, and then it was really cool to just see so many folks having a good time. And we were doing like informal surveys everywhere. So what'd you think? You're gonna sign up for another one? We had people asking us for tips about, Orcas Island.
Yeah.
We've promised like personal Zoom calls with them to get them set up. But yeah, super fun race. I love the vibe. Again, it's kind of a bummer that this is the only race in California, but at least, Bill and the rest of the team, I mean, this is a proper swim run.
Yeah,
it's like well marked. It's challenging. You get a bunch of, they're really trying to make it like a bunch of swimming, a bunch of running, and really give you the experience of the transitions, which again, I felt the same way as the first year, just super well organized, and 8 stations were smartly placed, volunteers everywhere. I mean, it felt just like
no notes. It sounds like no notes for Bill and the TBF team.
No, except really maybe solid. They should add like a chip or double as like a registration category.
You save $50 on signing up for both.
Sign up for both. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I'll echo all that piece there. And yeah, over the 3 years that we've done it, I think the first year was really, you saw people in like board shorts and they weren't really sure what to do. And every year, this year we probably saw like 10 arc suits or like actual swim run wetsuits, keels, paddles, Frank paddles. You're like, oh, okay, like, word has kind of gotten around. These people are kind of getting it a little bit. I guess that's partially our doing, I suppose.
It's like, excellent.
Lots of Adidas 240 Terex. So, we're responsible for some of this stuff. But yeah, I don't know what the guy's name is, but the guy who was running the MC finish line stuff was doing an amazing job. They had a whole cool barbecue with burgers, chips, salad, all sorts of stuff after. And like everyone, and the beach was also open. So it's like a lot of people recreating, lots of stand-up paddle boards and all sorts of fun stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we had a great time, got to go out there, race it hard, good, crisp swims. I did. The swims were very, very enjoyable every time you got in. It was like, okay. It's nice.
Honestly, like with the air temps that warm, I think like the cool swims were really refreshing. Yeah. And the VIG, I would say, was the right suit. I mean, besides the VIG, we both, our standard kit, we had Keel Pluses, Frank Paddle Pros, Steels, the VIGs. And then, I think overall, if you want to get into sort of final thoughts, I had super fun. I love this event. I want to do it every year. It was, once again, this is our 19th swim run. Kind of crazy that our 20th swim is going to be Casco, sort of like the thing that
Yeah.
started it all, really.
Nice.
So that'll be super memorable. And as far as a race to train through, I think we hit on sort of on my checklist of things I wanted to do for myself, which was
Yeah.
like make sure my transitions were better, just kind of be smart about nutrition and the hydration, and just try to move well. I think on all that stuff worked well. And again, another one where we weren't super dialed in on like prep. Like for Casco, we'll have all the islands memorized and
Yeah.
stuff like this. For this one, it was like, yeah, we kind of have a sense of it, and
Like
let's just
more
rely
off
on our
feel.
experience.
I think that's the best way to put it. Like I felt much, didn't mark up the paddles or any of that. It was like, could really just rely on, those 20 swim runs that we've done together over the past, however many years, 6 years it's been that we've been doing this. So that was a nice, it like, takes it down from like an intensity perspective down several notches. And it's like, you can really enjoy it a little bit more. But I was really proud of the transitions that we had. I don't think we were like dogging it on any of them. We were in and out, go, you ready? Like boom, boom. We were kind of ready to go.
You know what I've been doing, and I intentionally did it on this race. Maybe this is a pro tip, is I got my goggles settled way earlier. So like as
Like
we're
on, like you were wearing
like
them?
on and
Okay.
getting them, like making sure they're pressed in well and
Yeah.
everything, like way earlier.
Okay.
And then by the time, and the pool buoy was already sort of released. So when it was time to go, it was just like pool buoy in, paddles are, just get your paddles in, and it was good to go. So I thought that probably saved, maybe a couple seconds of just like fiddling with it.
Is that your first thing now that you kind of go set in is lock your goggles in?
Well, I think so. So my approach is, make sure the swim cap and wetsuit is zipped up.
Yeah.
Like swim cap is on and wetsuit is zipped up. And then from there, release the pool buoy, set the goggles, and then, make sure your approach makes sense. So like, don't set the goggles if you got to like climb down some cliff or something.
Yeah.
But when you kind of know what's coming up, beach, entrance or whatever, you can set that up way early, and then it's just one less thing. You won't have to worry about leakage or anything like that.
I would say, like, just with the VIG being able to be zipped up most of the race, for the 2.5 mile run, I did I know that I unzipped, put my paddles in, I just got undressed how I knew I was going to want it. But being zipped up and more ready to go and prepared, I'm like, hey, we know it's coming up here. We could see the swim entrance, or we can spot the buoy across the river. So we, just by doing a little mathematics and geometry, we're able to tell it's coming up soon. Had my sextant out, was like lining that thing up.
Where do you keep that in your kit?
It's in the kangaroo, in the back of the kangaroo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really deep. It's right next to the compression bandage that I don't care.
Yeah.
But snappy transitions, I think, will serve us very well in Casco. Fueling a good opportunity to exercise that. And then, like really getting out there and like, putting a good effort out on the swims. I was really happy with how that is, because Casco's such a beast from the swim perspective. So I was happy with that, happy with the effort that I gave out. And wasn't overly like blasted sore in my legs or anything. My arm, I actually like my swimming shoulders were a little bit, I was not debilitated or anything, but
I was like, felt like you put in like 2 hours of up tempo activity.
I was like, I must have really been smashing these long swims to start. And then like Monday, 5K swim workout on the books. I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. But it was good.
Yeah, for sure. And like looking forward, so we have Casco Bay, time of recording, we essentially have like a week and a half or something. So very excited for that. That'll be our 4th time doing Casco Bay, which is just kind of nuts. Well,
18,
are we counting
21, 22, 23. 20.
Yeah.
5th time.
5th time. It'll be the 5th time.
Yeah.
So that's honestly, like when we did that thing in 2018, if you would have said we would come back and do this thing 5 times.
Wow.
I don't know if I would have believed it.
I don't know about 5. I say we probably would have done it again, but like 5 times, I don't know.
It's a lot of times. But hey, we're stoked. It's an awesome race.
Absolutely.
We really think it's one of the marquee swim runs in the country, and still time to sign up, people. So you know what you got to do.
Yep.
But I think with that, had an awesome time once again. Always a pleasure to to tether up with you, Chipper.
Always.
And yeah, it just actually got me super stoked for Casco, just to have like a race where everything felt like all the pieces were pretty. Yeah, I felt like even like Bellingham felt fine. Whistler, I felt like rustier. Like I wasn't as clean with the transitions, and I don't know what was up with that. But this one kind of felt like, all right, like it felt much cleaner.
What I hear, we need 2 Rust Buster races, and then we'll really be ready.
Yeah, or maybe like the rust comes on the longer races.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But yeah, looking forward to that, and looking forward to seeing everyone in Portland, Maine.
Absolutely. Still time to sign up. Low Tide 15 will save you 15% for any Attila USA race. So we'll see you out there. Post-race party, as usual, will be at there's an Envol shakeout situation if you want to go test things out at South End Beach or whatever it's called. Go check on the Facebooks for all that. And we'll see you out there. Peace.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of course, yes.